All right, I'm going to call to order. Hey, how you guys doing? All right, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. The July 16th, 2019 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District. We have a quorum. We've called to order, so we have an agenda in front of us. And anybody want to make any additions or subtractions from that agenda?
Did we want to add on to new business?
Yep. Okay, so I'll do that. So under new business, the first item will be Ramsey County presentation.
Second.
Okay, any other changes? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to, I'll make the motion, Mark seconded, to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. We can move on. So the meetings from the last, or the minutes from the last meeting, are there any changes in those?
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Okay, so we're on to a portion of the meeting for public comments. And I don't know if everybody saw an agenda, but this portion of the meeting is for items that are not on the agenda. Now, one item that's coming up next after the public comments is, which you probably saw if you saw the agenda, a presentation by the Ramsey County folks, and then taking information from you folks then after that. So now, again, we're in public comment time. Is there anybody that wants to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, moving on to the next item, new business. And I think the way we'll start this is we'll ask the Ramsey County folks to come up and just talk a little bit about the work they're doing on the lake and what they do, what they can and can't do, that type of thing, whatever that really they want to talk about. And then we'll take questions for them or additional input from you folks. Okay. So if you could just state your name and address so we can get it in the record, that'd be great.
Sure. Commander Eric Brow with the Water Patrol Unit, 1411 Paul Kirkwell Drive. Also my Sergeant Mike Timbaga here. Come on up. So we're here to talk about some problems on White Bear Lake. So we're here to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Okay. Can you just kind of get us going, can you talk about what the patrol generally looks like out on the lake?
Sure. So we have 3 full-time staff, 4 part-timers, 60 volunteers that volunteer about 8,000 hours a year. And we're basically out just protecting the waterways. A lot heavier presence on the weekends and holidays, but what we do isn't magical. We just try and keep everybody safe.
How do you coordinate with, because Washington County's out here too, do you guys coordinate with them at all? Like days on and off or anything like that?
Sure. They also have a boat out there that patrols.
Yep.
We try and do the best at coordinating that with them. If we have 2 boats out there, that's great.
Yeah.
We work well with their sergeant. On the 4th of July, we had, how many boats? 4 boats out there, including a Washington County boat, 5 deputies at the beach protecting it, 4 volunteers. So that holiday weekend, we threw a lot of resources to prevent any problems.
Okay. Any other questions for?
Yeah, when, I have a question. When you get a call for, say, I mean, I think why the parking lot's full today is because there's some problem areas where boats are all tied off together.
Sure.
And then causing noise complaints and things like that. Is there anything that could prevent them from doing that? Or, I mean, is it, I know it's a public park, but so they can allow to tie up and just hang out in an area?
That's correct, yeah. You know, the lake's there for everybody to use. You mentioned the parking problem. To date, we've issued about 100 parking citations. We try and police that parking lot to hopefully cut down on the level of boat activity that's out there. Obviously, you all know the water's up and multiple docks on residents, or multiple boats, I should say. So obviously, we've seen a huge increase in boating last year and this year. I was in Water Patrol for a number of years, and I got promoted and moved out for about a year and a half. So I'm back this year. I started back in the spring, and so I'm back into the swing of things, trying to get caught up with things. But I work almost every weekend myself, so I see the problems. I also see when people call and there's not a problem. So it's a balancing act for us, really. I mean, we have 3 full-time staff and a couple part-timers that are out there dedicated to the water. We have 17 lakes that we patrol, 18 miles of river, and in addition to that, we have all the county parks to take the calls on. So not here to say we don't have adequate staffing, but on busy weekends, we're busy. I think you probably all know this, when the weather's nice, the lake's packed. When it's raining out, we don't have anybody out there. From a staffing level, I could have 8 people scheduled and 8 people doing other, I'll have to reallocate those resources to other things and paying overtime. It gets expensive.
I get it. And I'm sorry, because I'm sort of the one who the lake utilization falls under.
Sure.
So I get a lot of calls and questions. So would it be possible if we had the funds to add additional, like, say, undercover, whether they were water patrol or not, like maybe a deputy on shore in plain clothes advising and then not going through dispatch because they have scanners out there, so they know when people get dispatched if it's not over the phone?
And I'm glad you said that. That's the hard problem. Our boat's pretty identifiable. They see us
Yeah.
coming. We talk to key players in the group. We say, hey, spread the message. We don't want to be out here ruining people's time. Whether the message gets carried or not, I guess I have some question on that. But we're really trying to target the key players that are out there. I really think it's a handful of core boaters that are out there. We'll be sitting right there sometimes early on in the season with complete disregard with the music. They ignore us. And those are the people that we're trying to identify. And we've met with Mr. Cantrud, who was good enough to come to one of our meetings to come up with a plan and try and target these individuals and let them know that this activity isn't welcome. The hard part is they're all tied up together. We have a fairly large-sized boat, and to get in there, you have swimmers, small kids that are swimming in the area. We hate to have somebody pick up anchor, move over so we can get to one boat to try and identify whose boat it is. I have one instance where we have a boat identified, the registration doesn't come up to the guy that's hauling it in and out. We're doing the best we can with what we've got.
I know
We can
you're
always
on-
improve, and I'm glad that we're here having this discussion with the citizens.
Yeah, and those were all my questions, and just thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. On the funding note, I think you guys know this, we get about $4,500 from the Conservation District. So we're able to do that. We charge $41 an hour. It's about, what is that, about $4,500. Earlier in the year, I did reach out. I think I left a voicemail. I said, hey, this year's gonna be a problem. If we could increase the funding, that'd be great. We do also get state and federal money for boat enforcement, so we do have those grants we can tap into. So we use the part-timers for that and some overtime as well. So we try and distribute that the best we can. It's a juggling act with weather. One thing I do want to mention is when the no wake zone is on at on the St. Croix River, we see a huge increase in boat activity out there. So once that goes off, it tends to die out a little bit. So hopefully that's going to alleviate some of the problem people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question. So if people see something on the lake, what should they do about that? Should they call 911 or call another number? Or
That's the best way, is to call 911. That way we have a record of it. We can track who's calling, where the problems are. We've tried to keep up on that. I do have some limited information here about where the calls are coming from, who's calling, how often they're unfounded, how often they're found to be a violation. So, yeah, the best thing to do is obviously to call 911. And, even if we're busy, we still try and get to it. A loud music and playing on the lake, it's going to happen. The calls that I've responded to, a lot of times the swimmers in the area are louder than the music that are out there. It's a busy park, and I'm not saying you don't have a problem there, but we send a squad or two over there, and they're tied up on a loud music complaint when the complainant isn't accurate. Because when we get there, even on land, I know they see us coming or they may have scanners, but I drive an unmarked vehicle and I'll sit on Lake Avenue with binoculars and look. Again, trying to identify which boat it's coming from. And I've had a call come in from a 911 caller that there's a music complaint. I'm sitting right there and there isn't a complaint. So it is a balancing act. And again, I'm not trying to say you don't have a problem there. There's a certain level of disrespect by a few of them that are out there. There's no question about it. So Thank you for the question.
Okay, yeah, Jeff?
We've all got these wonderful little TV cameras in our telephones. How good is this as evidence for the people who are being harassed? If they can, get good video evidence, are you able to do anything with that?
That's a great question. I don't know if Mr. Cantor can weigh in on that or not. We will obviously take a look at it, A lot of people have cameras in their car now, and State Patrol gets that request all the time, hey, review my video. And I've seen a lot of troopers say, we don't need that. We can figure out and reconstruct this crash from what we've got. That's a definitive science. But, if it's loud music and on the boat, again, we want to identify the person that's
Yeah.
controlling the loud music. A lot of times they're on the cell phone, and they're not digging in the glove box anymore to turn the volume up or down. They're doing it with their phone, so.
But what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
that they won't see you coming, they won't see me coming.
Right.
If I take a picture of them being bad actors, I wonder if that's, Ellen, is that good evidence? Is that something that they can act with?
I suppose the first question should be, if someone on shore calls 911 and says, I'll meet you on shore because I have either a still or a video of an offending watercraft, and you ask, is the registration clearly visible? Is it still on the lake? And the answer is yes to all those questions. What would you then do?
I think we'd take it, look at it, run the registration if we can identify somebody. Obviously we work well with you, have you review it and see if there's a charge we could get out of it.
Yeah, because if they tender, if there's
Yeah.
clearly a violation that can be seen from the video.
Right.
And I'm guessing that a couple of the folks here
Yeah.
probably spend their time on the weekends recording some of this activity. The question is it worthy of a citation? If you see it, the boat's still out there. I get that if it's the next day, you can't do that much.
Yeah.
I just reviewed a video today from another city's concerned citizen that clearly shows a pontoon coming and using a private dock multiple times over multiple days, and they even ran the registration, so they know where the boat comes from. They can see clearly the individuals involved, and I don't know what's going to come of that because that's, as they say, on the other side of the jurisdiction. But if it happens over on this side, and I think most of the people here want to know what can they do to get some relief from this activity.
Right.
So
Well,
I don't have a problem reviewing it, and as long as you go out there, make contact with the boat, and they admit, and you can figure out who was driving the boat, I always go on the same impression that you would with a vehicle on the road, right? The presumption in law is that the driver is the registered owner, unless they clearly don't look anything like that person. And I think we talked before about what happens when it's the not me defense, right? If the owner's not on the boat, gosh, it might be stolen. You're going to have to impound the boat now, right? And miraculously, the owner kind of identifies himself at that point. So there are ways to find out who's driving the boat and who got it to the lake, right? And I think that maximum pressure and maximum inconvenience when you do get an opportunity to do this is what's going to push them back onto either a different lake or get them to calm down here. Because it's getting to a point where we've got a room full of people that are all complaining about probably conduct that's within a very narrow channel of activity, and they're thwarting you guys, is what it sounds like. And like I tell everyone, the phone's faster than your boat, and that's the problem, right? They're calling ahead to their friends, and they're saying, hey, brown boat's going around the bend, turn it down, do whatever, stop doing whatever you're doing, right? So I don't have the answer for that because I'm not out there watching you guys do it, but I think, like Mark said, an undercover boat would go a long way, right? And someone on shore watching this stuff just like these guys are. But I think before we think about the solutions, I think you should hear about some of the observations that these guys have first, and maybe we can address them as we go along. But I told you guys when I came and presented to you, if you send me a report and I can figure out who to charge, I don't have a problem doing it. If you can figure out who to charge out there and you can cite them, I'll take care of it in the court system. So give them the ticket and forget about it after that, because then it's kind of my problem. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to do that. It's a logistics, somewhat of a just logistics problem to do that, but we have some new technology, and I won't comment on that here coming, but that may help. Absolutely. We're happy to
It's a
partnership.
marathon. All these people aren't going anywhere. So these are all transients for the most part, or at least I'd like to think that they aren't people who live on the lake. But I don't know. These guys would probably know better. But Anyway, I know a lot of people came to talk and they didn't come to listen to me.
Yes, right, so thank you for that input. So I think that what we'll do, if it's okay with you, if you could just take your seat then, and we'll let some of these folks come up and talk about what they're thinking about. And then after we accumulate some of that information, then maybe there'll be some questions for you.
Sure, absolutely, yep, happy.
All right, thanks for that. Okay, so and I think Alan's probably right, there are probably a lot of similar issues that folks have. And so if somebody wants to come up and tell us about what those issues are, and as many of you as want can speak, but if somebody's expressed your view, then say, great, they expressed my view. So if you want to come up and let us know what you're thinking about, great, just let us know your name and your address, and we'll get that on the record, and then we'll go from there.
My name is Sue Alcrona, and I'm at 2509 Manitou Island, and I'm going to just start just because I made the call to a lot of these people, and I want to thank all these people for showing up, and also I do want to thank the Water Patrol for doing a really hard job. I mean, we're seeing it, and it's not an easy thing. So this isn't about an attack for, lack of anything other than we're worried about what's happening to this lake, and I think any of us that are seeing what's happening on Minnetonka, we're kind of headed that way a little bit on a much smaller scale, but we're a smaller lake. And I think that, the only way that we're going to make changes is to have our voices heard. And this is not about, lake owners, lake homeowners. It's about everybody that lives in this community and enjoys this lake, whether you're walking around it. And we're being denied that right now by the way a handful, it's a handful, but it's growing, and it's probably much more than a handful, and I think you'll hear from some of these people. But to me, it's escalating, and I think it's ruining lake life for a lot of people. And so that's why we're here. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, I'm Denny Troyan, married to Sue Alcrona, who just spoke, 2509 Manitou Island. We put together a PowerPoint presentation, probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes stop. I'm not going to take a half an hour of your time. And I think we can get that up and running now. Can we just get the slide, start the slideshow? So we get just one slide up there at a time? Alan, can you help to know if it's
I can ask the video.
Video, I
It is, on local.
we're trying to do that?
don't want to hit the wrong button.
I think you hit that screen, I caught him, and that brings it full screen. Yep.
Since they're not transient boats, these are residential boats.
Oh, that green and black one is the title, is it? Is it title?
Yeah, none of them drop, they're all on the lake
They're
somewhere,
all on the lake.
whether they're in the marina or they're on a dock.
Landowners, or what are they?
Yeah.
Some are.
Spoiled children of landowners is what they are.
Do you want to maybe end it and then restart it? Yeah, but you have the single slide up there, Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
Even, can we delete next slide option somehow? Oh, we had it for a second.
It's the old folks boat
And start
there.
over.
Yeah,
Is that yours?
the Let's Go Fishing
Just
boat.
give it a second. Oh, yeah, from beginning. See that one, Alan?
Getting into the slideshow, that's all. I don't want to connect
I
online.
think all you have to do is hit from the beginning. Here we go.
There you go.
This presentation comes out of what I think was an extremely illegal attack. It was an attack on White Bear Lake, June 26th. This year we witnessed it from our deck. So here's what we'd like to talk about, the illegal and disrespectful use of White Bear Lake. We'd like to give you some specific instances of that, which includes some videos. We're going to talk about who I think is probably the main culprit in the green boat, who brags about his illegal activity at the VFW. Yeah, so they're self-proclaimed pirates, and I do have a photo of the pirate ship captain. There was a confrontation on that, after you see the attack that happened that afternoon, a few of them went to the VFW to drink, maybe more. And they were going to leave, and I wanted to get the registration number of this green boat. And we all know the green boat. If you know anything about this problem, you know about the green boat. And there was a confrontation down there, and I have a video of that as well. And then I think the question we're all asking tonight is, yeah, it's bad, where do we go from here? So these are the things, you do have some ordinances. I don't think they're as good as the Lake Minnetonka ordinances, but I think people should hire you to make them tougher, make them more detailed, and give greater weapons to these guys to be able to issue citations that really have some teeth to them. And I won't get into the details of that, but a $100 fine, and if it's your third offense, it's a $500 fine, something like that. So you do have some ordinances. We saw careless operation, that's illegal under your ordinances 9 or 16. Reckless operation, that's I'm using the phrase in your ordinance. Operation within 100 feet, floating users, weight creation. Noise, you do have a noise ordinance. And I quote it, "No person shall operate a watercraft in a manner which creates excessive or unreasonable noise." Now you can say that's fairly broad, requires some discretion. Well, you ever heard people being arrested for disorderly conduct? Police do it all the time, and they have to make that judgment call. And then it's up for a judge or a jury to decide, was it unreasonable? So maybe a few of these get thrown out of court. Maybe we start to develop some precedent as to what is a violation of that. But we have something on the books. It doesn't have a lot of teeth, but you have something. No jumping of the wake by a jet ski within 100 feet. We're going to see that video in a second where all of these boats and jet skis are supposed to be 100 feet away from each other. I stopped counting at 32 violations just in that short video. And the registration numbers in the decal of the pirate ship are not visible. At least I couldn't find them. So we'll talk about those in more greater detail. So here's a video of the attack as we saw it on June 26th, sitting from our deck on Manitou Island. Do we have some noise, some sound? Not that that matters too much. But you can see what's going on is there's a bunch of jet skis, there's two boats, they're right next to each other. There's the pirate ship. There goes another boat within 100 feet. Oh, there's within 100 feet. Oh, there's within 100 feet. And this is just one of, they did these, oh, did you see that? Did you see how they did the wake in the middle? And the guy tried to do a 180? Look, 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet. And here goes by a poor guy in a pontoon boat with his family. What about him? Here are the two boats again, within 100 feet, darn right. How about the guy going up the middle? Again, I lost count at 32 in terms of the number of violations. I'm surprised somebody didn't report this when they saw 20, 30, 40 jet skis in the Ramsey County parking lot ready to launch. If anybody sees anything like that in the future, dial your 911 because you know what's going to go down. You want to see that again or no? Okay. So we took a photo of the seniors on Let's Go Fishing. Now there's a good example of that. This is one of our two favorite charities in White Bear, because we just think it's a wonderful way to get people out on the lake that otherwise can't get on there. And I do donate to them regularly. They ran into, we don't have a photo of it, but it's the same afternoon, taken within maybe 10, 15 minutes, and you know what they're going to be in for at some point. Noise easily heard. Am I going to get that one on? Is it going to cooperate? Here we go. Oops, I don't know how that happened. Let me try that. Let me try that over. Nope, didn't do that on my home computer. And it's a loud noise, but we don't have noise tonight, or sound, I should say, on the system. So, but again, any of you who know anything about this problem, you know that that is easily audible from hundreds of feet away. Hundreds of feet away. And it is crappy music to make it worse. Bruce Springsteen I could maybe put up with. So here's our biggest offender. Why did I take his photos? Photos taken at the VFW. Because he was there, and I really didn't know who he was. I suspected who he was, but I didn't know who he was. Still don't know his name. Bragging about how they were able to avoid the cops, not this particular afternoon. It must have been sometime earlier this year, maybe it was last year. Bragging about how the jet skiers that you just saw, similar situation, when the police showed up, they just, quote, dispersed like mosquitoes. And the cops couldn't catch them, the police patrol, he used the word cops, I'll use patrol officers. Couldn't catch them, couldn't find them, they're in every little nook and cranny on the lake, and they gave up. And he's bragging about that, so I took his photo. What's going down here? So he decided to leave, and I thought, I'm gonna go get his registration. So I went down to get a photo of the pirate ship with its registration, and I changed it to a video as I got closer. There are a couple of assaults. I'm not gonna go to jail for 40 years, but it was clearly an assault. They pushed me off my feet at the end of the dock, tried to get me either on the water or into a sailboat. I caught one of the cables on the sailboat and landed in there off my feet. There was a struggle to take my cell phone by another individual, and it wasn't just a grab. Do I have my cell phone? No, pretend my wallet is my cell phone. And this is kind of what it was. It wasn't just that. And I got it, I won. Shortly after that, one of the guys says, "You want to fight, old man?" I said, "Well, I'm an old hockey player. You sure you want to do that?" At that point, the woman said, break it up, we've had enough of this stuff. And as I walked away, I turned back and said, "I'm not done." And we're not. We called the police, reported the incident. They came to the VFW, talked to us. I think they went to Don Julio's after that, because apparently that's where a lot of the illegal criminals retreated to. What happened, or any citations there, I can't speak to that. So that's the guy who pushed me off my feet. Here's the guy who struggled for 5 seconds to steal my phone, and I'm sure it was going to go in the lake if he won. Well, this is too bad. It's coming out sideways again. I don't know if there's anything I can do to change that.
Getting the sound at least.
Yeah, it's interesting. The sound on this one comes out. What I basically said to him was, we're really in favor of public use of the lake, but not abuse. We're tired of it. And what I was trying to do is to get to the front of the boat to try to get the registration number. I couldn't see it. It's supposed to be clearly visible. Now, some of these boats have a very sharp curve under the rub rail, and maybe that's where it is, but I don't think that that's clearly visible. So maybe next time when the officers are out there, if they can't readily see that with their binoculars, that might be probable cause to go in. So again, I'm kind of making my way up there. And They're kind of blocking me from doing what they knew what I was trying to do.
When did this take place?
June 26th in the evening. Be a little more interesting if it was turned the other way and we had a little louder sound. So this is when I then tried to make my way further up. And again, I said, guys, you know, I think public use is great, but public abuse, not so much. And of course, they all laughed about that. So here I'm trying to make my way, and that's when I'm getting pushed down. That's pictures that were taken while I was down. Couldn't get pictures of when he tried to wrestle away my phone. So where do we go from here? Stepped up enforcement, I think we certainly talked about that. The officers talked about calling 911. Great to hear that. Additional funds needed. Now, did I hear a number mentioned in terms of what the district spends per year on patrol?
$4,500 for Ramsey.
To Ramsey County.
We also have Washington County out there.
And how much are they paid? Do you know, I don't mean to get you on the spot.
The way they do it free.
Okay, that's very nice. I think there could be private funds available to enhance this. I also think there's enough political clout in this community to have the county commissioners of Washington County and Ramsey County listen to our concerns so we get adequate funding. And I guarantee you get rid of this for a year or two, it's going to be gone. They'll be gone. I would love to hear the idea of unmarked patrol boat. You're a step ahead of me on that one. That would really, really help these guys. And also if they could dock it, even the one that's marked, they could dock it in different locations. So the squeals, the spies that notify the pirate captain of when these guys are pulling out of the VFW dock, isn't so easy for them to avoid the police. I'm sure we could get a dozen people on the lake that would love to rotate the use of their property. VFW is private property, so public versus private, I can't see a distinction there. But I also think drones could be very helpful. There may be an issue as to arresting somebody based on just a drone, but think of the evidence that you can collect. If they sent their drone out on weeknights 6 until 8, you would know exactly what's going on that lake. You might not get to it in time to stop it, but you're going to gather a whole bunch of evidence, and probably enough that you could justify a sting operation at some point. Be great information, and I'll tell you again, the pirates see that drone up there. It's like when you're driving down a highway and you see the helicopter sitting up there. What's the first thing you do? You look down at your speedometer to make sure you're not speeding, because that's what they're doing. I mentioned earlier that I think I did read your ordinances as it relates to prohibited activities in terms of operation on the lake. Lake Minnetonka, as you know, is a much bigger lake. They've had bigger problems, but we might learn something from their ordinances. And over the next couple of weeks, I hope to give Alan some suggestions on what they maybe do. There's a handful of us, and maybe it'll be a room full soon. We're looking at forming a nonprofit group known as, for example, Respect the Lake. Not don't use the lake or don't have fun, it's just respect the lake. Respect this lake. And to avoid this, well, it's just a bunch of homeowner lake owners. I'd want the board to skew in favor of non-lake owners. So it's very clear that that voice is extremely important. And, you know, I say to these people, these pirates, your time's over. It's over, because we're not going to quit until the problem is solved. Your time is over.
All right,
Thanks for letting me take this.
Yeah, thanks,
I'm done.
Denny. Is there anybody else that has anything to add to that at the moment? Otherwise, we'll let the sheriff's folks come up, and if you'd like to come up and address some of that stuff, feel
Yeah, I'd
free.
just like to address just.
Yeah, that's great.
The video you had there was great. We did have, we did respond to that. We did have one boat on at the time, and the jet skis, like you said, scattered like flies. The incident at the VFW, obviously probably went to White Bear Lake Police, but the picture that he showed me and the boat, I have positively identified. So I can certainly talk with Mr. Cantor if there's any charges out there. I know exactly who the boat is and who the driver is, so. And on the issue of putting the boat on a different dock, we work very well with the city of White Bear Lake and the fire department. However, this spring, we're looking for a spot to put our boat that's more visible. We did approach the city Public Works to put it on the Y dock, and they said that that dock is too busy, we don't want you there. Not that we don't want you there, it's just too busy for you there, so we're trying to think creatively as well, so. We may have a solution over the winter to get it a little closer to that area that's highly used, but I think, so the conversation with that group of these scattered lake flies is, well, okay, you got us here, we'll go to the next lake, which is probably what they'll do, so.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that they would like to add?
Yeah, I want to say, I don't think that this is transient boats. I think most of these boats are residential boats. They're just spoiled children of parents who bought them very fast boats.
That's not true, because I know who these kids are, and their parents aren't on the lake. These, no, that is.
Well, most of the ones that I see making noise in front of my dock are boats that I could go around and find them in slips in my neighbor's houses, so I'm pretty sure they're around.
Just real quickly, that may very well be true. I guess in terms of the pirate ship.
Well, this guy,
That,
I don't know.
yeah, that's not a result of rich parents.
Okay, and that's okay. So somebody else wanted to come up and say some things?
Well, not on that particular issue, but
Anything you want to talk about?
more generally. I was here a year ago.
Yep, welcome back. And if you could just let us know again who you are and your
Don
address.
Wright, live at 5011 Lake Avenue on the lake. And we've talked about the congestion last year, the concentration of boats, and I think the concentration is growing. And it's, I think the concentration kind of feeds on itself and feeds a little bit of that behavior. A lot of the people are just fine, but the bad actors find a place where they can gather, and they kind of feed on each other. So I think the problem is growing. It's not going to go away by itself. I brought some more pictures. You saw them last year, but these are new ones. I might call your attention to the, there's two sets. You can start with the outside and pass them in, but it just shows more and more congestion. The last picture on there just took this afternoon because there were some kids swimming outside the Memorial Beach, outside the floats, because the water's so shallow inside the floats they can't really swim. These are kids, and they were only up to here. They were quite a ways out beyond the floats. But I wanted to get some clarification, if I could, because there are a couple of things that we can't seem to get clarification on. I'm reading your own ordinances. This is section 3.05, swimming and bathing areas, subdivision 1C. No person shall operate a watercraft within 100 feet of any person in the water or floating on a raft except those being towed by the same watercraft. And this afternoon, these kids were swimming. Boat came right in the midst of them and parked where they let their dogs go swimming. But the boats seem to have the right-of-way, not the swimmers. And then I looked in your document again. This is frequently asked questions. And it says, how far should boats stay away from swimming areas or scuba diving flags? And the answer is a minimum of 150 feet. But if you look at the Memorial Beach, where there are lots of kids swimming, the boats on weekends particularly, and this is what the pictures show, they're up right hard against the boundaries. They park right against the floats and the ropes. So they aren't even 15 feet away, let alone 150 feet away from the swimming area. And we talked to the sheriff, who was one of the deputies, came to our dock one day, and we were asking him about that. He said, no, there's no restriction on how far away they have to stay from the swimming area. So can you give us some clarification on what the regulation really is? It would be
Yeah.
helpful to know, because safety is a real concern out there.
So,
With all that congestion.
we took what you said to heart. And this winter, I met with the city manager for White Bear Lake. The city of White Bear Lake has just purchased a bunch of buoys for no motorized, and they're going to put them 150 foot off Optimus Beach and Memorial Beach.
Okay,
So then it'll be delineated.
okay, good, thank you. That's good
And
clarification.
I know for a fact that the people that are going there, the only reason they're going there is because they can get out of their boats and wade in the water and drink beer. If you can get them out far enough, they don't want to anchor and swim.
Sure, okay.
So we're hoping that if that helps, we're hoping that avoids that
Great.
particular problem.
Good.
I know they've got the same off of Ramsey Beach. Matamidi doesn't. It's so deep there,
Sure.
doesn't
yeah,
seem to be an
right,
issue.
Right.
But on the other hand, the lifeguards should not be allowed anybody to go past the swim rope buoys.
Yeah, well, they don't have they made, I don't know why, but at Memorial Beach, they brought it in much closer to shore this year. And these kids, they were out there today, they're swimming well beyond, they're up, and they weren't big people, they weren't tall people. The water was only up to here. You have to get into some kind of a deep water if you want to swim. They were having a birthday party for somebody. And if they had stayed within the ropes, I don't know if they could even swim. So I don't know why they shortened it up so much this year, and that's
the
a
city.
question, I guess, for them. One comment, we talk, well, we live in the condominium right next to between the two public beaches. And one of the things that we thought about this year, we have a little marina, we've got some slips and a dock there. We did talk about the possibility of allowing the sheriff to put one of your boats there if he wanted to. We can provide the space. I don't know if that would be helpful or not. You're talking about being closer to the action. Well, that's where a lot of the action is. That's where the noise is, and that's where the congestion is. It'd be easy for us to do, if that would be helpful.
So you think the empty boat will be distracting them?
Pardon me?
You think the empty boat will keep them away if the sheriff's aren't
No,
in
the
it?
trouble with that is that they'll know it's empty.
Right.
They'll see it. I mean, so that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
But you talked about wanting to be closer to where you need to be when you need to be there. But, or if it was an unmarked boat, and they came use it. But it would be unmarked for the first time they used it, and after that, they'd know it. So,
Past lifetime, I was in the military police, and I have 5 cousins who are like county sheriff and some undercover.
Yeah.
They go through impounded cars daily because as soon as they spot the first
Sure.
one,
yeah,
it's made.
yeah. Now, the downside
Put
of
one
it is.
boat out there, they're
yeah,
going to know it in a day.
If the boat's in the hoist, they know they can do whatever they want to. Yeah, that's the downside of it.
Okay, so anything else for us at the moment?
Not for me, but
Okay.
we have some of our other folks. here.
Thank you, and maybe if you guys want
Can I just
to,
respond to that just real quick?
yep, that's great.
So what I looked at in the White Bear Conservation District, it says 100 feet from a swimming area may not operate. That's not to say they're not going to get out of their boat, take the rope and pull it in and swim. They will figure that out, they will do it. The reason we get away with it at the county beaches, they have, in their ordinances, they have, under Section D boating, it says launch, dock, or operate any watercraft within 100 feet of any swimming area. So I think we may want to look at that, because I didn't see anywhere in the ordinance for the Conservation District that says may not dock or launch. So if they're, if they, like I said, if they're, you can put the buoys up, but they're going to swim the boat in, and then what do I use to enforce that? The issue of the dock, that may be an option. One of the problems we have is we have a 22-foot Boston Whaler with a big motor on the back because the waves are so high, it's a safety boat. We need that out there. We do have a lot of other boats that are shallow water. Putting a boat may help us get access into there. I'd have to research that. So that may be an option for us. We're always looking for dock space. This spring, the dock that we had originally in prior years was real tough to get in and out. We're fearing that we're going to bash into another boat, so we had to quickly act and look for other spots. And the VFW was great. They've welcomed us with open arms to come in, so they deserve a lot of credit.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else that would like to say anything?
I'm Barb Collins. I live at 5011 Lake Avenue also. And there's another concern, and I have a question. How far do boats have to be from our dock, our little marina? This past weekend, 2 of us with our boats could not get out of our slips, and we couldn't get back in our slips. And 2 of us damaged our boats trying to get out, and we scraped the dock, and people don't move. They don't care. And there were kids swimming right behind our motor. We stayed in our slip, started our motor. No one would move. And when we asked them to move, people in the boats turn and ignore us. So how many feet do boats have to stay away from a dock or boats parked at a dock, private dock?
And does anybody on the board know that off the top of your head?
I can answer that.
Oh, great, yeah.
And that's a common complaint we get a lot of times from fishermen. They'll be, they come in close to fish and people's lines get tied up at their dock and people get upset. So I do hear that. The first specific case, what I would consider that to be, there's nothing that says that you can't be so many feet from a dock. And I know Manitou Island experiences a lot of the pontoon boats that are there, and the city has fielded a lot of calls. We haven't had too many about that situation. If they're in the water, if they're off of private property, they can be there. So there is no set limit for that. However, if she can't get her boat out, I'm gonna consider that a navigation hazard, and off of that, I have a little bit of teeth I can deal with, so we can come out there and tell them to move. If they don't, we'll cite them under the navigation hazard, so.
Okay, thank you.
I just print my photo out, but I'm just going to show it to you quickly. This is taken from, I'm standing on our dock. This is my little boat slip, and this is what's going on.
Where is it?
This is between, I live at 5011 Lake Avenue in the Shadow Gate. This is between our building and the swim line for Memorial Beach. Yep.
You have a problem with that?
They've got that picture, Sarah. They've got that picture. The bunch
You
of
got
cities,
it?
they've
Okay,
got
so I'm
that.
just going to quick,
They've got
here's our boat slip.
They gave them.
Here's what's going on in between our, this is going on between our dock and the east end of the swim line. So, I'm the dentist down the street, and my concern about is all of this, but I also think it's a tremendous public health issue. That beach is shallow. They're standing there for hours and hours. There's waste. I'm sure it's contaminated. The water's shallow, the sun is warm, and we saw what happened last week at Minnetonka, and I have concerns that it could happen there. And just said, at the risk of being crass, but I'm going to say it, 2 Fridays ago I had company over on my balcony in the evening, early evening, and we were watching the boaters, and 2 of them got out of their boat, went to the end of our dock, which we now have a gate on that's locked, walked down our dock, and when they got to the shoreline, one took his pants down and defecated at the end of our dock. So, in front of our whole building. So I don't know.
Well, sorry that you had to experience that.
Poor behavior, but that's the general feel, that's the tone, and it feels like it's crescendoing, and that it's escalating. So,
Did you call in a trespass?
well, by the time it's done, it's over.
Yeah.
The cop's never going to get there. But that's the level of behavior that I think we're abhorrent.
Yeah, I feel really bad for that, and I think that and I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I know for us, when people say, well, did you make any, we don't have any complaints. And they're like, well, we don't have any complaints. So if you make that call and make the complaint, at least then it's down. And they can say, we've had 20 complaints last
Okay.
weekend
All right.
on people walking on our dock, people doing this, people doing
And
that.
where would you like us to complain?
Well, that's land, so that's
That's
the
land,
city.
that's it, okay.
We're
All
only,
right.
when your feet are wet, that's us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh,
Hi, Pat Igo, 1621 Goose Lake Road. You all know me, and some of you do too. I hang out on the lake all the time, and we've got a lot of really good people out there. But there is a handful. There is a handful of of people that are causing trouble on the lake out there, and it's making it difficult for everyone. And the things that are going on with the private property and trespassing, and I was at Shadowgate on Sunday when that all was going on. But it's a little crazy out there. But we can't just lump all the people on the lake into this one little group. It's a small group of people that are causing the problems, and these guys know who they are, and they're doing a very good job, I think, of getting them out of there. But we also have to, I think, look at, I proposed an idea for a boat park a couple years ago, which would slide everybody over by Ramsey, which would have been a little nicer, and then there would be some buoys there that would direct people in and out, because it's a mess trying to get in by Memorial Beach. It's terrible there. And I don't know what else to say.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay.
I'm Helen Duritza, 4675 Lake Avenue, and thank you for the meeting and allowing everybody to have as much time as we've taken tonight to discuss this. And lots of good points have been brought up by many either homeowners or those that are close by and see what's going on. I want to just say I think it's important to not differentiate between if the offenders are from here or elsewhere. That it's all about, I don't know what the words are, untoward behavior, bad behavior, what do you call it, bad actors, illegal action, but to be cautious about pointing fingers at outsiders or insiders or lake homeowners or non-lake homeowners. I know I live on the walking biking path, and I'm thrilled to be there. And it's not happening tonight, or has it happened recently, but we have heard, you lakeshore owners, you lake people. Well, that's not how I feel about anybody on Carolyn Avenue or 8th Street or wherever it is, and I feel that same way about anybody who wants to come and use the lake properly. So I just want to be cautious about not singling out if you're from here or you're from elsewhere, but we just need to follow the rules. And so many good comments tonight about what can happen and what has been happening. Thank you.
I made a comment about a lot of the boats that are indigenous boats, and I wasn't making it as though they're entitled. I'm making it as though we can find them, we can walk up their dock, we can knock on their door and tell their dads that they've been behaving badly. So it just seems to me that, we can identify the boats and where they are. They're
Okay.
pretty easy to recognize.
Okay.
This is not, I'm going to talk about the marsh area that's beyond the bridge.
Can you just tell us who you are and where you live?
I'm sorry, I'm Shannon Foster. I am from Shadowgate. I love the no wake. I think it's wonderful. But could you continue it through the marsh? I've got skidoos and wave runners going through there constantly. And they shouldn't be in there at all, I don't think, going fast. It's chewing it all up, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I went through there slowly last week and didn't create a wake all the way till I got to the end of the reeds because I was looking around, and that's not shoreline that should have a wake. So can we work on that? Putting another, we can talk about that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay.
I'm Jody Skolnick. I'm from 5009 Lake Avenue. And there is a lake in Michigan that has a similar problem, and a local restaurant put on their menus some PR reminding people to just be considerate of other people. And so maybe there's some PR that can be done on the lake to remind people that if you like rap music, somebody else might like opera. So keep it to yourself. So it's something, I don't know if that's something that this committee does, but I thought I'd just, is it? I'm getting a lot of stares,
Everybody has
blank
different-
stares. So
everybody has
I
different-
always think that's good when I get blank stares.
yeah.
So anyway, I think some PR can help. Also, maybe the newspaper or local restaurants or the docks down by Tally's down there can help kind of spread the word that, I don't know if it will help with the problems, but it's always good to increase the
Yeah,
community.
and you know, one idea there is maybe everybody could talk to the restaurant owners down along the lake and encourage that, because, you know, they're all good people, and then they'd probably be
Right.
open to doing
Or
that.
down, you know, when people are launching their boat at Ramsey County or whatever, you give them a little sheet.
Yep,
Something
yep, that's right. I think those are good ideas.
Find the sheets floating
Okay,
everywhere.
yep, again?
I'll make it real quick because I know I spent a lot of time previously. I really like the idea of the boat being at Chateauguay and put a camera on it. Make it very visible, right in the front of their boat. They can see 180 degrees, what's coming in, what's being launched, what's going on in the Delwood, Manitou Bay. I think it'd be a great idea. Just to have the pirates to look at that camera. And I don't think too many of them are gonna have the guts to go up there and hit it with a hammer.
And you know, one idea for you would be, because I think you've had some good ideas, is if there's a card or if you have a suggestion that he could send those suggestions over to you folks in some way, so they don't get lost, maybe that's a good idea. You know, there's not a lot we can do to take those suggestions and tell you guys, hey, can you do this, or put a camera on a boat, that kind of thing. But just to get those across. All right, thanks. Oh, yeah, thank you for
I
that.
just wanted to know, the buoys, what are they gonna have on them? Is it gonna say no motorboats? No wake?
No way.
No wake, I think, is typically how we label those buoys.
That's not gonna help.
Well, motorboats have the right to travel the lake.
But at Ramsey, that's exactly what their buoys say. No boats inside.
It's a swim area.
Yeah, this is a navigable part of the lake.
Well, you've got a swim area there.
She's talking about the one you talked about, Mark, the city buying the extra buoys for Optimus.
No, I'm not talking about the marsh. I'm talking
No.
about our area where they are all
Oh,
gathered.
I took you wrong. Okay.
Okay, so,
I'm sorry, but that was.
no, that's all right. I'm easily confused, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we're not talking about the marsh area. We're talking about what will the buoys say outside of the swimming? And I think,
Yes.
yeah, and I think the city might be putting those up. And if there were anybody from the city here that
Ellen's
would be
here.
interested in talking about that? Yeah, sorry, El.
No, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. The buoys will say, and I believe, I think it's been no motorized vehicles, and I know that our police department has talked with someone from Water Patrol, and I don't know if it was either of you two individuals, because we were coordinating the language based on what we're allowed to by state law. I was just talking to Sarah Boo in the back. She and I have had a few conversations before the summer began and as summer's gone along. Tonight, it's been very informative. I haven't had the opportunity to witness a lot of what you've witnessed, other than through Sarah's messages that, you know, I received from her. I think we have a really great opportunity right now. I think there's been extraordinary cooperation with Water Patrol. I know you guys are working really hard to do what you can do with the resources you have. I know that there's been frustration from our department on their end because they can't get past the land into the water, and that's been frustrating for them to kind of move forward with some of the confrontation, I think, that, especially over the 4th of July, that occurred off Manitou Island. So and I know that also with regard to our Memorial Beach, for instance, we had discussions in advance of our summer about the depth of the lake and concerns about having the buoys go out too deep for safety of the swimmers. So there were decisions made in advance of the summer about how far those go out, with that consideration taken at the time. I think as we're experiencing this summer, we're seeing a lot of things unfold to a degree that no one expected. I certainly didn't. I think some of you probably did. So for that, I apologize. But I think maybe the long and short of it for me is, as I'm sitting here in the back listening to all this, I see a tremendous opportunity to work more closely with the Water Patrol. We've been in communication, I know, especially before July 4th, in anticipation of some of the things that were going to happen. I know there was some other things in the county that took some of those resources away from the Water Patrol. I mean, like Johanna had some things they needed to attend to, so it wasn't without a pre-plan to, I think, address some of the issues they anticipated on the 4th of July. But nevertheless, yeah, I don't know what else to say other than the buoys will have some verbiage on it. We had some limited discussion at the council level about a lifeguard at Memorial Beach, and right now that's no longer on the table, but that is probably part of a broader discussion with all of the different things that could be perhaps done to help make that whole area more enjoyable, and also for those that are using the lake. But I can answer any questions if you'd like, but with that, I'll just go sit in the back.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh,
Will those buoys still be put in this season? They will be, yep, they will be. And the delay has really been, it's been tricky, because to the point about really defining very specifically what our allowances were. I mean, obviously, it seems pretty clear in the statute, but to the point that was brought up by Water Patrol and the enforcement of that relative to people being able to bring their boats in, so we wrestled with that a bit. We were talking a little bit about lifeguards, talked a lot with Sarah about some solutions, and unfortunately what happens is we have that, and in the middle of all that comes up something else that we then need to address that's immediate, and then we go back to it, and then pretty soon it's July 4th. So clearly having something in place, not unlike some other issues we're dealing with, the gift of having the high water now, it's a blessing, and it's also creating a lot of other issues we have to address. So now I think we're in a really good place to look at some of those things in advance of next season. The buoys will be put in place probably within the next week. I know they're putting them together now. They're on order, they're in. I just asked about that 2 days ago, so I can't give you a specific date. I know it's very, very soon. So we intend to put two or three in front of the beach, and also one between the beach and the docks of Shadow Bay.
No motor or no?
Yeah, and that's, if I would tell you specifically if I was absolutely certain, but because you have to be careful about the language you use so it's enforceable, and I have our assistant city managers working on had worked on ordering them. I believe it's no motorized boats or beyond this point, but it definitely indicates that 100 feet indicator. I know that I believe, I've heard that there have been placement of buoys elsewhere in some areas around the lake at different times, that sometimes they disappear. So we're hoping that doesn't happen. That's just one piece. I'm hearing suggestions like you are about perhaps working with our local marina establishments about, they have their customers who are boaters, and it's better educating people who are boaters on the lake to spread the word. I mean, I think there's a lot of things, we could collectively do. Unfortunately, we're halfway through our summer. It doesn't mean we can't do some things now, but.
When those buoys go in, will the Water Patrol know it? So that
We've been coordinating that with the Water Patrol. I don't know if you want to speak to
I've
that.
received emails and I've worked with the assistant.
Yeah, with Rick.
Yeah, with Rick.
Yep.
And he's been great about it. So we have been in communication, so that's been great, so.
Can I ask one other question? If the buoys go in by Memorial Beach Public Swimming, and then you said another one kind of in that dead zone between that and our dock, my concern would be that the people who congregate there will just push to the other side of our dock, and then that's going to impinge on people, because they'll cluster there because it's shallow as well, if we don't get a buoy on that side of our T, because that's going to impinge, and the noise will still be, or the congregating will still be in that, even in a more tighter spot, and will impede people being able to safely use the area around to put their boats in and out. Sure.
So yes, I can sympathize with that concern, because you're right, that may be one of the unintended consequences of putting some buoys there. I don't know that we would have the authority to put something on that side. Really, it's even putting it beyond the beach area is more of a marker. But we're limited to the swimming area in terms of what we're able to do at the city level, as far as I'm understanding it. But
Could we put our own swimming area on that side?
I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone here know the answer to that?
I think I have an answer for you on that. I don't see what would prohibit you from doing that. What's in the books is the owner of the shore square feet, but not more than 50 feet along the lake frontage for swimming area. So if that answers it. I think that would be fine from what I see it.
Okay, may I? Yeah, thank you. What I'd like to suggest perhaps is, so I was just telling Sarah in the back there that I think as a result of hearing all of this at the meeting, it's kind of a collective ideas. You bring an idea out and all of a sudden another problem arises, which is legitimate. So then we need to figure out all the consequences of different things we do. So having more people around the table to flesh out some of the ideas, I think, is more valuable than having one or two staff people or maybe the patrol and us trying to figure it out. So to that end, I think, number one, it's going to be important for our staff that are helping with this issue to be listening to the feedback from the group here tonight so they can watch what's being recorded, number one, and then for us to meet again with Water Patrol, and then perhaps having a few of the residents that are here, not then, to make it productive, just a few would be more productive than the whole group, so we can have a kind of a I think, a productive conversation to just flesh out perhaps some ideas, and then again, maybe someone from the Water Conservation District, and
Sure.
kind of start to problem solve. We've been taking steps, but certainly there's room for maybe more that can be done.
Okay, so thank you, Alan. And didn't mean to put you on the spot there, Alan, but thanks for the input. Okay, so we heard from you folks. Thank you for that. We've heard from the Sheriff's Department. Thank you for that. And so, is there anything else anybody would like to say, or can we move on with our meeting? And
Can I just give a quick little?
yes, please.
So obviously, it's great we're having this discussion. Like I said, we're doing what we can for you people. Our sheriff is very progressive. He's not going to want to see these kind of problems on the lake. So we can certainly ramp up our efforts, but like Mr. Igo said, it's a small handful of people that are causing the problems. I think we all know that. Trying to identify them, we've identified some already. I just want to be cautious with the buoy thing and not get everybody's hopes that this is going to be the complete savior for that, because it's like a 55-mile-an-hour road sign. If we don't have a statute or ordinance to enforce that to write the citation, it's really not going to mean much. So I think we've got a good plan here together, working with the city to put those buoys up. It works at the county beach. I don't see why it can't there. If we can enforce it, I think that'd be a great start to solving some of your problems.
Seems like, when they're first put up, if your Water Patrol had a presence there to tell people right at the beginning what it meant. If you let them get in there for a week or so and then try to get them out, it'd be a lot tougher. But if they know right from the get-go what the rule is, that would certainly, be the time to nip it in the bud.
And certainly, Sergeant and I will carry the message back and see how we can help our enforcement. We're out there every weekend and sporadically during the weekdays. And Washington County, like they said, is out there for free. We're probably off of a state grant, to be honest with you, or a federal grant. So we have resources that are out there. And again, we're here to be, we're proud to be your sheriff's office. I don't want to see problems out there. We'll do our best to enforce it for you. And hopefully, a year from now, things will be better. But it's going to take some work. I'm not saying I'm up here going to solve the problem, in a couple of weeks. The season's going to die off right around state fair time, really thins out. But, so thank you for having us.
So thank you all for bringing your concerns to us.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on with our meeting. That's the new business. The unfinished business, continued discussion, buoy placement in the ADUA. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about on this item? To be honest with you, I'd really rather push this into next month when we can have a better discussion about it. But if folks want to have a discussion, then let's do that. Susie?
The size of the buoy, when we're not necessarily where it's placed as far as the ADUA, because as somebody was saying, the fishermen come to the end of the docks. They're in everybody's ADUA.
Sure.
But if they're visible, and large enough and will go under the water when they're hit, then you have, a good plan, I think.
Sure.
It just can't be like a hot dog.
That's all. And have her
I was just saying that the buoys have to be large enough to be
Standardized.
visible. And they have to have the ability to be hit and go under the water and not wrap around somebody's motor,
Yeah.
like what happened to our boat. And I think, where you place it in the ADUA isn't really the biggest question, because there are lots of people who go in the ADUAs all over the lake. Some of them are the jet skis, and some of them are the fishermen, and there's all sorts of people in people's ADUA. So it just needs to be visible.
Anything else on that item?
Yeah, the other thing that we were discussing is, now we do permits for buoys, but apparently a lot of buoys don't have to be permitted, and it sounds like that's a fuzzy part of.
Not inside their ADUA. They don't have to permit if it's inside their ADUA, which is 200
But
feet
it
from
says-
shore.
Okay. So all the ones we approve are outside of that.
I think we require a permit through the sheriff's department. They're permitted by the sheriffs, correct?
Can you shut that door for us, please? All right, thanks. Sorry.
Actually, an application on our website for people to get those permits.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
turn them
the
into
one that
us.
Jane
Yeah.
gets.
We have our own permitting process.
For anything outside your ADUA.
Okay.
The township has permits for a buoy. Oh, hello.
Yes, thank you, Diane.
So we do permit buoys other places.
The township does that. So I think the question in front of the board is, should we, in some fashion, identify what would be an acceptable buoy in an ADUA?
Yes.
Whether that meets a particular standard for a buoy, or it's a particular color, or has particular markings. Is the board interested in, and I think the way this would look is somebody would take this as an action item and write up some specifications, say, for the buoys, and then we would figure out as a board if we want to incorporate those into our ordinances, or if we want to publish those in some way as recommendations. What do people think about that?
I think that would be a great idea.
Okay.
I mean, now I've seen white buoys, and white buoys are not very easy to see on the lake. If it's a yellow or an orange or something that's, you can see it.
Okay.
It's much more doable.
Mike, did you have anything? Nope.
Well, there is a standard mooring buoy.
Yes.
Okay.
White
Half
with
blue,
blue.
half white, certain size, doesn't say Hilux on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what color is it, Mike?
Blue and white.
Okay.
Half blue, half white.
Yeah.
And so, Susie, is this something that you would like to pick up and just maybe to the next board meeting bring some specifications that you would advocate for the board to consider?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other discussion, or can we move on? Okay, perfect. So we're on to reports and action items. The executive committee met yesterday. Actually, we spent some time with Kim just talking about how things are going. So we came up with some office hours and these types of things. And I think that what we'll do is we will just have Kim send out that information to everybody of that type of thing. And that was basically it for the executive committee meeting. So we're on to the Lake Quality Committee. Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry, hello. Lake quality, the lake level is 925.14. That's 0.2 of an inch different than last month, the same as the month before, so it stayed really steady. Water temperature is 80 degrees, nice and toasty, feels good. And we had the lake aeration water milfoil treatment on July 2nd. It was a warm, calm day. It should have been a really good treatment. We'll get the results later in the summer. So that's it. We'll talk about Phragmites later next month or the month after.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. Lake Utilization Committee, Mark?
Nothing on the agenda today.
Okay. Lake Education Committee, Scott?
Yeah, the City of White Bear Lake posted the anti-plastic signs last week. So we have some of them up. There's still a bunch that have to be picked up. We'll have to, I guess, deliver them if
Okay.
heard nothing.
I have just a few left. I caught a couple of them here tonight and got them to take them, so.
Okay.
As if Mr. McGoldrick was here and so on, so they did get them. So we only have a couple left, so we're good, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
hopefully we can get those
Yeah,
out real
yeah,
soon,
yeah.
before the summer's all gone.
Right, right. All right, well, thanks for following up on that, Kim.
Yeah.
Anything else, Scott?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Treasurer's report, Diane?
Treasurer's report for July 2019. I guess I'd like to make a motion to accept checks 4582 through 4587.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to approve the checks. Any discussion?
you'll notice that the payment for the Eurasian Water milfoil treatment is on there.
Yep. $28,248.92.
Okay,
Under budget.
That is correct.
Good job.
That's what I figured it would be, so.
thank you, Mike. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. So that passes.
Did somebody second it?
Yep, Mike did.
Okay, I didn't hear. That's okay. Thank you.
We lost our board council.
Board council report? We will assume that we'll catch that if Alan returns, and if not, we will pick it up next month. Announcements? Kim?
I only had one brief one, is today I did receive, I think this is my third call so far that, of complaining that the water ski course is not being moved every 2 weeks. This gentleman said it's been over 3 weeks and it's still there. And so I did email Mr. Redpath and just ask for a status on where they're at and if they're being moved. But I just wanted to have on record that this is our third so far already about that, same thing.
Okay, so you're following up with Mr. Redpath, and that should
Yes.
get some action, I guess. Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, that's it. So we're on to item 10, adjournment. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you all for hanging in there.